The concept of the natural family is under attack, and a siege is being attempted on the spirit of the Declaration of Human Rights. Let me be clear here and now, sirs and ma'ams. There is a distinct difference between sex and gender or gender identity. The pseudo-war being waged by some against the family is premised on this obfuscation and literal obliteration of the distinction between sex and gender. Sex is a biological construct that transcends race, ethnicity, religion, and jurisdictional jurisprudence. Sex is binary. You're either male or female. God determines this at the moment of conception. A fetus carries either the XX or XY chromosome, determining whether it is born female or male. From my beloved Ningo Prampram constituency in Accra, Ghana, to New York, and Rio de Janeiro to Madrid or Delhi to Perth, the interpretation of XY and XX is constant. Gender or gender identity, on the other hand, is a social construct that has evolved on the peculiarities of various societies. From the onset matching the binary nature of sex, we see different recognitions of gender today across the world. There is no universality in the concept of gender or gender identity, and it is highly fluid. And as such, gender or gender identity cannot form the basis for any rights accruing in a covenant, a convention, or international treaty which seeks to be globally acceptable and binding because we have different interpretations. This is the basis for my avowed position that the letter and spirit of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights is apt and meets the needs of our global world today. It emphasizes in Article 2 of the rights, the rights and freedoms in the Declaration, and it's clear that there shall be no distinctions made based on sex. Yes, it says sex, not gender or gender identity.
So we have this interesting man. His name is Sam George. Sam George is very interesting, yeah. You know, it's not every now and then I call someone interesting. He's interesting because we have a few African leaders that are still using their common sense, the African common sense. Yes, Sam George was able to be invited on a UN meeting where they were discussing matters of Africa, and Sam George introduced a very, very important topic, something that many African leaders would not walk up front, and they wouldn't just seem to talk about it because they're afraid of the white people, you know. Sam George was so brave. He came up front and he talked about this issue. It was the issue of homosexuality and the role of family in the development of a nation. So without further ado, I want us to get into this video, continue watching it, and let's get to learn. By the end of the video, I'll give you my critical analysis.
Mr. George is a member of parliament from the country of Ghana. Mr. George.
Thank you very much, and all protocol duly observed. As a natural-born man, a charismatic Christian, a husband of one woman, a father of 3 children, and an elected member of Ghana's parliament, I hold the role of the family extremely sacred. I believe that the right to found a family and determine same is a right that accrues to everyone within the context and spirit of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and several other recognized international treaties like the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. 75 years after the UDHR, the spirit and letter are more poignant than at any other time in our history. At a time in our world where supposedly progressive forces are agitating for a redefinition of the core principles of what a family is and represent in a somewhat regressive manner, the genuinely progressive voices, like those in this room, must rise in defense of family, its values and protections. The concept of the natural family is under attack, and a siege is being attempted on the spirit of the Declaration of Human Rights. Let me be clear here and now, sirs and ma'ams. There is a distinct difference between sex and gender or gender identity. The pseudo-war being waged by some against the family is premised on this obfuscation and literal obliteration of the distinction between sex and gender. Sex is a biological construct that transcends race, ethnicity, religion, and jurisdictional jurisprudence. Sex is binary. You're either male or female. God determines this at the moment of conception. A fetus carries either the XX or XY chromosome, determining whether it is born female or male. From my beloved Ningo Prampram constituency in Accra, Ghana, to New York, and Rio de Janeiro to Madrid or Delhi to Perth, the interpretation of XY and XX is constant. Gender or gender identity, on the other hand, is a social construct that has evolved on the peculiarities of various societies. From the onset matching the binary nature of sex, we see different recognitions of gender today across the world. There is no universality in the concept of gender or gender identity, and it is highly fluid. And as such, gender or gender identity cannot form the basis for any rights accruing in a covenant, a convention, or international treaty which seeks to be globally acceptable and binding because we have different interpretations. This is the basis for my avowed position that the letter and spirit of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights is apt and meets the needs of our global world today. It emphasizes in Article 2 the rights and freedoms in the Declaration, and is clear that there shall be no distinctions made based on sex. Yes, it says sex, not gender or gender identity. This is a definite position and must be defended by all progressive forces. The UDHR in Article 16.1 makes yet another actual position that I cherish and implore all of us to hold fast and dear, that the right to marry and found a family shall be between men and women of full age, without prejudice to their race, nationality, or religion. Yes, it says men and women, not men and men or women and women. Yet again, this is another reinforcement of the principle of sex and not gender. As a proud African, Article 2 of our African Charter on Human and People's Rights also echoes the principles of enjoyment of rights without prejudice to sex and not gender. As Africans, the role of the family is cardinal to our society and its well-being. To reinforce this, Article 18 of the African Charter recognizes the family as society's natural unit and basis. It imposes a responsibility on member states in the African Union to protect the physical health and morals of the family. Yes, it said morals of the family. It declares the family as the custodian of morals and traditional values recognized by the community. The Charter says there is no ambiguity here, that the values of family as a union between a natural-born man and woman must be protected by all of us. Against this backdrop, together with 7 of my colleagues in Ghana's parliament, I'm sponsoring a private member's bill titled The Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Families Values Bill 2021 in Ghana's parliament. In conclusion, I reference the critical role that a family plays in the development of society through the development, education, and upbringing of children. Article 18.3 and 4 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights declares respect for the liberties of parents and legal guardians to ensure their children's religious and moral education in conformity with the convictions of the parents and legal guardians. This right is not given to an educational board or a pressure group or a government. It is the sole right and preserve of parents in the family unit. Ladies and gentlemen here gathered at the UN headquarters in New York, the family must remain respected and recognized as the union between natural-born men and women of full age, who have the right and responsibility to determine by their beliefs and in conformity with the generality of their community the details of the religious and moral education of their children in a manner that respects communal norms of public safety, public order, public health, public morality, and the fundamental rights and freedoms of the majority of their community.
As you can see, Sam George has been able to talk about himself. He's been able to address the panel as himself. He's talked about his family. He's talked about why the family is under attack. You know, this homosexuality thing is an agenda, and it's an agenda to depopulate Africa, you know. And I love how he's addressed this issue. So I want us to look at a video. So I want us to discuss the role of the family and the importance of Sam George's speech to the contemporary African families. Yes, so let's dive in. So this is something that you as an African needs to know. First of all is traditional African values are the bedrock of societies across the continent. You know, it provides a framework for social cohesion, identity, and resilience. In Ghana, these values have endured for centuries, shaping the way people interact. It's not only Ghanaian, but the whole African people, you know. So it has affected how people interact, how people govern, and perceive the world around them. At the forefront of safeguarding these values stands a man, Sam George, a distinguished political leader whose unwavering commitment to preserving Ghana's cultural heritage resonates with the nation's populace. You know, Sam George is the voice of the unheard. Sam George does not speak only for Ghana. Sam George speaks for the entire African continent. Sam George speaks for the African diaspora. Sam George speaks for the people who are oppressed under the laws of white supremacy. That is who Sam George is. Let's not look at Sam George as a Ghanaian. Let's look at Sam George as a Pan-African. So, understanding traditional African values. Why is the things that Sam George said, the speech, why is it so important? So, to comprehend the significance of Sam George's role, it is imperative to delve into the essence of traditional African values. These values encompass a wide array of principles, ranging from respect for elders and communal living to reverence for spirituality and a profound connection to the land. You know, they are not merely abstract concepts, but tangible expressions of cultural identity and collective memory, passed down through generations via oral traditions, ritual, and everyday practices. These African values are now being attacked. These African values are now being attacked by the Western, and Sam George is trying to protect it. You know, in every market, there's always a madman. There's people who will fight against Sam George, people who are Africans. I ain't calling them mad, but remember, in every market, there's a mad person. There always has to be a mad person in every market. And we know who that mad person is. The mad person is the African who does not support Sam George's ideology of safeguarding African traditional values. We have our values and we should preserve our values. Traditional African values are borrowed from the European, from the Christian, not European, from the Christian values. They're not far much different. It's the law of the land. Now, what is the role of Sam George? As a political leader in Ghana and a Pan-Africanist, Sam George occupies a pivotal position in shaping the country's socio-economic landscape. Recognizing the intrinsic value of traditional African values, he has made it his mission to integrate them into the fabric of governance and policy making. Through his advocacy and legislative efforts, Sam George champions initiatives that prioritize community empowerment. Sam George champions initiatives that support community empowerment. Empowerment, which is the voice of Africans who are being oppressed by these African values. Personally, I'm being oppressed by these Western values. I don't find them so much comforting. We don't have to have, a man should not go to a woman's toilet. I can't wake up one day and say, I feel like I am a woman and I walk into women's toilet. No, that is not happening in Africa. And thanks to people such as Sam George, these things will not enter anytime soon. But eventually, I'm so much afraid it might. Eventually, that is. You know? So, Sam George empowers and prioritizes community empowerment. He also does cultural preservation and intergenerational dialogue. By doing so, he is not only upholding Ghana's rich heritage, but also fosters a sense of belonging and a pride among its citizens. You know, what are the challenges to traditional African values? Now, despite their enduring relevance, traditional African values faces numerous challenges in the contemporary world. These forces of globalization, urbanization, and technological advancement has ushered in a wave of change that often threatens to erode age-old customs and practices. Moreover, the legacy of colonialism and the influence of Western ideologies have created tension between African traditional values and modernity, posing existential questions about the future of African cultural identity. Now, Sam George is really trying hard to preserve and to make Africa what it was and what it is. You know, it's a question of colonialism, neo-colonialism, a question of transatlantic slave trade. Black people were oppressed, both in the continent and outside the continent. The oppressor still feels like they have the power to come up front and to question and force their demands on the Africans. They still have the same things in their mindset. The mindset has not far changed. The person is the person. The idea still runs up to today. The idea that they can come to Africa and tell the African leaders, accept LGBTQ or do not get aid, shows a lot about them. They really don't care about us. They see us some people who can be pushed. And this is not right. Africans should wake up and realize one day people will realize what they have already realized, that one day it will be so bad for the oppressors. There's a day the monkey will learn to leave the cage. The zookeeper will be in trouble. Now, Sam George's leadership exemplifies a steadfast commitment to navigating these challenges while staying true to Ghana's cultural roots. Through his advocacy for educational reform, he seeks to ensure that future generations are equipped with the knowledge and appreciation of their African cultural heritage. Additionally, Sam George's support for community-led development project empowers local communities and initiatives to preserve traditional practices in the face of external pressures. Furthermore, he has actively engaged with traditional leaders and grassroots organizations to bridge the gap between tradition and modern governance, fostering a symbiotic relationship that honors the past while embracing the future. In as much as we want this modernity, we should be ready. We should be ready not to throw away our culture and accept Western culture. Africans are easily losing their culture and taking in other people's culture. We see our cultures being way backwards. Of course, there are some cultures we can't support, such as female genital mutilation. This is something of the past. That one is not supported. There are some practices that are harmful to the Africans, but there are practices that separates Africans from the rest of the world and makes Africans really, really unique. These values should be preserved. Sam George's role as a guardian of traditional African values is indispensable in Ghana's journey towards sustainable development and cultural resilience. Through his visionary leadership and unwavering dedication, he serves as a beacon of hope for preserving the essence of what it means to be Ghanaian, what it means to be Kenyan, what it means to be the African diaspora, and what it means to be the African. You know, in this never-changing world, in this ever-changing world, the world is always changing. The only constant thing in this world is change. Change is the only constant thing in this world, you know? So as Ghana navigates the complexities of the 21st century and its challenges, Sam George's legacy will endure as a testament to the enduring power of tradition in shaping the nation's destiny. Many people are not comfortable with what Sam George is doing, but Sam George is protecting our future children. Sam George is even protecting you. You know, this thing of LGBTQ, it comes in a way that it looks so smooth from the outside. People who are having colorful things, freedom and all these, no. It's not that way. This thing is going to culturally erode our society. Morally, it's a moral decay. That's going to happen, you know? And as Africans, we should be aware of such things. And we should really uphold such leaders. Not fight against them, but fight for them. Look at how different he was from the rest of other people. He seemed like an alien, but he stood steadfast. He presented African value before the UN. How great of a person can someone be? That's my question. That's my question. So that's the end of the video for today. Kindly, if you like the video, do support the channel by subscribing, share your thoughts, support the channel by joining my Patreon, donate, and also give me a super thanks. I'll so much appreciate. Remember, we have some George on our side. When we have some George on our side, we have morality on our side. And most importantly, we have the Most High God on our side. See you in the next video.